Welcome back to the FTTM podcast, your guide to getting the right product to the market at the right time. This week, we're going to focus on FTTM planning, how to execute to achieve right time.
It is great to be back. And, I'm really, really looking forward to this one. We so often get caught up talking about the what?
It's a shiny object.
Exactly. The shiny new product, the breakthrough tech,
Yeah.
The big market disruption. But today is all about the how. It's the engine room. It's about how we structure our time, our teams, and our whole mindset to actually hit those crazy targets we set.
Exactly. And I have to admit, when I first saw planning on the calendar for this week, I had this visceral reaction. I was bracing myself for something really dry.
Okay.
My mind just went to this dark place of spreadsheets, 10,000 rows deep, and endless meetings in rooms with no windows.
Gantt charts that need their own zip code.
Right. Exactly. Timelines stretching out into infinity. The kind of planning where you spend way more time talking about the work than actually, doing the work.
The classic death by planning scenario. We've all been there.
We have. But then I started digging into the lateral works research we have for this deep dive, and I realized I was just completely wrong. This isn't planning in the bureaucratic sense at all. This completely flips the script on how teams operate. It's almost radical.
It is. It absolutely is. And I think that's the first thing we have to clear up right at the top. When we talk about FTTM, and for anyone new, that's fast time to market, the lateral works research isn't talking about just working harder or adding more managers to, crack the whip. And it is certainly not about making a more detailed schedule. It's about a fundamental shift, a shift in authority and in autonomy. So today isn't about control.
It's about speed.
It's about speed. And in this model, you just cannot have speed without a very specific and I'd say very aggressive kind of autonomy.
And that is really the mission for this deep dive. We're going to unpack how the lateral works best practices can turn these what they call sluggish bureaucratic teams. And let's be honest, we've all been on one.
Maybe we're on one right now.
And it turns them into these heavyweight, self-empowered units. The phrase that just jumped out at me from the research, and I think we should anchor on this, is that these teams need to treat a project like their own business.
That's the core philosophy right there. It sounds so simple, but just think about what that phrase really implies.
Yeah.
Like their own business. If you're running a small shop, do you wait for someone to tell you to restock the shelves?
No, of course not.
Do you ask for permission to fix a broken window? No. You just do it. Because if you don't make money. You don't eat.
Right. There's an urgency.
It's a total mindset shift. If you feel like an employee waiting for instructions, you are, by definition, slow. You're reactive. You're waiting. But if you feel like a business owner driving a result, you are fast. You're proactive. And to understand how we bridge that gap, because it is a huge gap in most corporate cultures, we're going to look at a really fascinating stack of documents.
Yeah, the stack for this week is great.
We have diagrams on how core team roles have evolved. We have this really intense thing called the interrupt and provisioning matrix. And then what I think is the centerpiece for today, the freedom scale.
Oh, the freedom scale. I cannot wait to get to this. It's from a guy named William Onken Jr., and Lateral Works has adapted it specifically for these FTTM teams. And let me tell you, it is one of the most blunt, hilarious, and honestly insightful management documents I have ever read.
It does not pull punches.
Not at all. It uses words like shot, as in fired, very, very liberally.
It definitely cuts right through all that polite corporate speak. But before we get there, before we get to the freedom scale, which is really about mindset and psychology, we have to set the stage with the structure.
Okay.
Because you can't just give people freedom in a vacuum, You have to build the right container for it. And Lateral Works contrasts two very different ways of organizing people. The old way, the traditional functional hierarchy, and the FTTM way, the core team.
So let's start with the villain of the story, or at least the antagonist to speed. The functional hierarchy. We've all seen this org chart, right? You've got your departments, engineering, marketing, manufacturing, all standing like these tall, separate towers.
Precisely. In the visuals from the research, you see these vertical silos. And the people who are actually doing the work, the engineers, the marketers, they're buried deep inside those silos. And the research describes this whole setup as having no project accountability.
No project accountability. I mean, just pause on that for a second. That is a damning indictment of how most companies are run.
It's a huge statement.
But I want to play devil's advocate for a second. How can there be no accountability? I mean, people have bosses, they have performance reviews, KPIs.
But they have functional accountability, not project accountability. And that's the critical distinction. Let's say you're a software engineer in a big functional hierarchy. Who's your boss?
My engineering manager. Or the VP of engineering.
Right. The VP of software. Your raise, your promotion, your vacation time, your daily marching orders. It all comes from that VP. The project you're working on, that's just a thing you're coordinating on. It's a side hustle to your main job.
Which is pleasing your functional boss.
Exactly. So if that big project crashes and burns, but your part, your code was clean.
You're safe.
You're totally safe. You just say, hey, don't look at me. I did my job. My code compiled. It's not my fault. Marketing couldn't sell it or, operations couldn't ship it.
It's the classic, the operation was a success, but the patient died.
That's it, exactly. Everyone did their specific little piece perfectly, but the product, the thing that actually matters, failed.
And the Lateral Works research is very clear on this. It explicitly labels this model as slow. And it notes that the control mechanism here is control before the fact.
Control before the fact. It sounds like a legal term, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
But what it means in the trenches is permission seeking. It's a culture of mother may I, because no one on the team truly owns the outcome. Every single significant decision has to go up the chain. It has to go to a functional boss for approval before it can happen. And that waiting for the VP to read the email, waiting for the weekly staff meeting to get a slot on the agenda.
That's where speed goes to die?
It just bleeds out right there in the waiting.
The research also lists out a few variables for speed in this section, and in this functional model, they're all working against you. It mentions, for instance, % dedication to the project. In this model, that's usually pretty low, right?
Oh, very low. You're usually time sliced. You know the deal. You're working 20% on project A, 30% on project B, and the other 50% is just sustaining engineering or keeping the old legacy systems from catching on fire.
The context switching must be brutal.
It's a killer. There's a cognitive tax you pay every single time you switch from one project to another. You spend half your day just trying to remember where you left off.
And another variable they mention is co-location.
Right. In a functional hierarchy, engineers sit with other engineers. Marketers sit with other marketers. They're physically separate. They might be in different buildings, different time zones.
So even a simple question requires a formal process. An email, a scheduled meeting.
Yeah. You can't just turn your chair around and ask, hey, does this look right to you? And the final variable listed is host control, which is high. The department owns you, your time, your loyalty. The project doesn't.
Okay, so that's the problem. We've got silos, we've got permission seeking, fragmented attention, a total lack of ownership. So now let's look at the solution, the evolution that Lateral Works documents. They show this progression from 2015 to 2017 in their research, moving away from this functional mess to what they call the core team.
This is where things get interesting, because the Lateral Works model isn't just a tweak. It's a move from what they call lightweight teams to heavyweight teams.
Okay, so paint a picture for us. What does a Lateral Works core team look like? How is it visually different from the old silo chart?
Well, the first thing you notice in the diagrams is that the vertical silos are they're broken, they're gone. Instead, you have this cross-functional group that's locked together. It's got engineering, marketing, operations, quality, finance. All the necessary functions are right there at one table, focused on one thing.
And they use this term heavyweight. When I hear that, I think of boxing. I think of power, muscle.
And that's exactly the right image. Heavyweight refers to two things, authority and dedication. In the 2015 version of the model, they described the team as having some heavyweight, most lightweight members. But they found that wasn't enough. It was half measures.
A halfway solution.
Exactly. So as they evolve to the 2017 model, the goal becomes a team that is most heavyweight, few lightweight.
So a heavyweight member isn't necessarily the person with the fanciest title in the company, but they have the most clout on this specific project.
It's a combination of things. First, a heavyweight member is dedicated. The research says you need 5 to 10 people who are effectively 100% on this project. They wake up thinking about it. They go to sleep thinking about it. They're not juggling 5 other things.
That focus alone has to be a game changer. Just knowing that when you walk in on Monday, you have one mission.
It's massive.
Yeah.
But the second part of heavyweight is the decision-making power. These people have the authority to make decisions for their function without constantly checking with a boss.
So the marketing lead on the core team is marketing for all intents and purposes.
She speaks for marketing. She doesn't have to go ask the VP of marketing for permission to change the color of the box. She just decides. She's the proxy for the entire department.
The roles listed in the diagrams are interesting too. There's a program director who's the sponsor, a chief engineer, a systems architect, a program manager, These aren't just titles. They're very distinct functions within this core group.
And notice the shift in the diagrams over time. By the time we get to what they call the autonomous stage, or the 2017 model, the team is practically a circle unto itself. It's separate from the main organization. The Lateral Works research calls this project ownership and accountability.
Full accountability.
Full accountability. If the project fails, the core team failed. They can't blame marketing or engineering because marketing and engineering were in the room with them the whole time. There's just nowhere to hide.
This sounds fantastic for the team. I mean, autonomy is empowering, it's fun, but it begs a pretty big question. What happens to the executives? If the team is making all the decisions, do the VPs just, co-play golf? Not quite, though I'm sure some of them would like that. But their role, it changes drastically. And this brings us to the group of people above the team. Lateral Works calls this group the steering arm.
The steering arm, like that name, it implies guidance, not force. It's not the commanding arm. Exactly. In a traditional company, executives micromanage. They want to be the ones turning the wheel. In the FTTM model, the steering arm is made up of just 3 senior executives.
Only 3. For a multi-million-dollar corporate project, that seems like a really small number.
It's completely intentional. If you have a committee of 10 executives, you get gridlock. You get politics. Everyone's defending their turf. But if you have 3, you can get a decision. You can get alignment. And their job description is, it's fascinatingly limited.
Limited is the right word. The research says they are there to provide strategic direction and clout.
And clout is the key word there. Think of them as the snowplow. If the core team hits a roadblock that they literally cannot move on their own, maybe they need a key resource from another division that refuses to share it, or a big supplier is playing hardball.
The steering arm comes in.
The steering arm uses their executive clout to clear the path. They are the tiebreaker for issues the core team cannot resolve on its own.
But, and this is the huge but that I think everyone listening needs to hear, the research says they operate on exception reporting only.
That is the golden rule. Exception reporting only.
What does that actually mean in practice? Because I feel like every executive says they manage by exception, but then they ask for a daily status update and want to be CC'd on every single email.
In a true FTTM culture, it is literal. It means, do not tell us what went right. Do not give us a status update on things that are on track. We assume you are professionals doing your job.
Yeah.
You only talk to us if there's an exception to the plan that you, the core team, cannot fix yourselves.
That requires so much discipline from the executives. They have to just sit on their hands. They have to trust the team.
It does. And it fights against every instinct a traditional manager has. Traditional managers want to feel involved. They want to touch the project to feel valuable. But the Lateral Works research is clear. Their job is to provision with information and resources, and maintain the vision.
They're suppliers, not drivers.
Exactly. The core team drives. If the executives are driving, the team isn't autonomous, and your speed just drops off a cliff.
Okay, so we have the structure. We have this tight-knit, cross-functional core team that owns the project. We have executives who promise to only get involved when things are actually on fire. It sounds perfect on paper, but we all know that structure is just the skeleton.
Yeah.
You can build the most perfect skeleton in the world, but if the muscles, the people, are paralyzed, you're not going anywhere.
And that is the critical question. You could put people in a core team structure, give them the titles, give them the war room, but if they still act like bureaucratic employees, if they're terrified to make a mistake,
you won't get speed.
You'll just get a cross-functional bureaucracy, a faster way to have the same old slow meetings. And this is where we have to get into the psychology of it all.
Yes. If structure is the skeleton, then the freedom scale is the nervous system.
The freedom scale. This is my absolute favorite part of the Lateral Works research. It's adapted from William Onken Jr., who was a genius at simplifying these complex management dynamics, and Lateral Works has adapted the freedom scale specifically for FTTM teams who live and breathe this empowerment concept. It effectively defines the physics of empowerment. You really can't understand FTTM without understanding this scale.
It answers that fundamental question, how much authority do I actually have? And it puts it on this really clear continuum from level 5 all the way up to level 1.
And it is so crucial to understand that FTTM requires level 1 behavior. You cannot have fast time to market with people operating at level 4 or 5. It's mathematically impossible. The decision loops are too slow.
Exactly. So let's walk through these levels because the descriptions in the research are they're gold. They are brutally honest. So if you're listening, pay close attention here because I guarantee you will recognize yourself, your coworkers, and probably your boss in one of these levels.
Okay, let's start at the bottom. the absolute basement of empowerment. Level 5.
And level 5 is wait until told.
Wait until told. The description in the text is just, it's brutal.
Yeah.
It says, virtually no empowerment, no growth for the employee, no leverage for the boss.
No leverage for the boss. That's a really interesting way to frame it. Usually we think about it from the employee's perspective.
But think about it from the boss's side. If I have an employee at level 5, I have to think of the task. I have to define the task. I have to walk over and assign the task. I have to explain exactly how to do it. And then I have to come back and check that it was done. I'm gaining almost nothing from that person except a pair of hands.
You're the brain.
I am the brain. They are just a tool. I cannot scale myself if my team is full of level 5 employees.
And the rule for this, Lateral Works has a very specific rule for when this behavior is even remotely acceptable.
The research notes that this behavior is only available for the first day or two of employment.
The first day or two. So basically, while you're finding the bathroom and setting up your email password.
That's it. You are allowed to be clueless for about 48 hours. That is your grace period.
And then comes the kicker. The Lateral Works research explicitly states, and I'm quoting here because it's just too good, that after day 2, people at this level should be shot.
It's incredibly blunt, isn't it? Shot.
I mean, obviously it's a metaphor, please. No one take this literally. But it really drives the point home. Why use such violent language for a management concept?
Because in a high-speed environment, passivity is fatal. That is what they are saying. If you are sitting at your desk waiting for someone to give you an instruction, you are not just useless. You are actively harming the project's velocity. You're a drag coefficient.
A human anchor.
Exactly. You are consuming resources, salary, office space, management attention, and producing zero forward momentum. So shot means you have to be removed from the team immediately. You cannot have dead weight on a sprint.
Okay, so level 5 is out. That's for people who are totally checked out. Let's move up one small step to level 4. This one is way trickier because it feels like work is happening. Level 4 is ask what to do.
Yes. The trainee status. The employee finishes a task, comes in the boss's office, knocks on the door and says, "Hey, boss, I finished that report. What do you want me to do next?"
That sounds, it sounds polite, right? Helpful even. They're asking for work. They seem eager.
It sounds polite. It sounds diligent. But if you look at the leverage calculation again, it is still 0. The text is clear. 0 leverage for the boss.
Explain that. Why 0?
Because every single time you ask, "What do I do?" the boss has to stop their own work. They have to break their concentration. They have to context switch back to your work. They have to come up with a plan for you, and they have to explain it.
So the boss is still the brain.
Correct. If I have to stop my work to figure out your work, I'm essentially doing your job for you, just mentally. I'm just using you as a remote-controlled drone to execute my thoughts.
And what's the Lateral Works rule for how long level 4 is acceptable?
Only for the first few weeks. It's totally fine for a genuine trainee or maybe an intern, someone who literally doesn't know the job yet.
But what if you're a veteran employee? What if you've been on the team for 10 years and you're still knocking on the door asking, "What do I do?"
Let me guess where this is going. Shot. Shot immediately.
I'm seeing a pattern. But it makes so much sense. If you've been there for 5 years and you still can't anticipate the next logical step, you are not an independent professional. You're a dependent. And FTTM teams cannot carry dependents. They are just too heavy. You need people who can see the field and make their own play.
Okay, so now we're crossing a major threshold. We're getting into the realm of actual contribution, level 3.
Level 3 is recommend, then take resulting action.
Recommend, then take action. So this is, "Hey, boss, I see a problem with the thermal design. I've looked at 3 options. I think we should switch to this other composite material. Do I have your permission to proceed?"
Exactly. This is a huge step up.
Yeah.
Because the employee has done the analysis, they have identified the problem and found the solution. The brain work is done by the employee, and that's incredibly valuable. But
They still stop. They freeze and ask for permission. The research calls this before-the-fact control.
the boss has to sign off before the action happens. That sounds safe, though. It sounds prudent.
It is safe. It's fail-safe, as the text puts it. And it's perfect for people in advanced training or maybe veterans who haven't quite proven they can fly solo yet on a specific topic. If the recommendation is totally crazy, the boss can catch it.
But, and this is the big issue, I'm assuming, it's still slow.
It's still slow because of the queue time. Even if the boss says yes immediately, you still had to find the boss. You had to book the time, present your case, get the signature. That takes hours, sometimes days. And it consumes the boss's mental bandwidth. In FTTM, days matter.
So it's acceptable, but it's not FTTM speed. We need to go even faster.
We need to go to level 2.
Okay, level 2. Act, but advise at once.
Now we're getting somewhere. This is what the text calls during the fact control. The employee takes the action first. They switch the material. They call the supplier. Then, immediately, they send a quick note to the boss saying, FYI, I switched the material to solve that thermal issue. The order is placed.
So this allows for a fast audit or damage control.
Right. If the boss reads that and has a heart attack because, no, that material is 10 times the price, well, they can intervene immediately and try to undo it. But the default posture is action. The employee didn't wait, they moved. This is for people who usually take initiative and stay within budget.
It cuts out the waiting time for approval, but keeps the communication loop really tight.
Exactly. And that brings us to the top, the Holy Grail, level 1.
Act. Routine reporting only.
This is the dream.
This is after the fact control only.
The boss might not even find out what you did until a week later during a routine status report. You might say, oh, by the way, last Tuesday we had that thermal issue, so I swapped the material, we tested it, and it's fine.
And the boss just says, great, and moves on to the next topic.
Exactly. By that time, the action is done, the results are already coming in. The Lateral Works research says this provides maximum leverage, maximum speed.
And it also says this is the point where the project feels like the team's own business.
And that's the psychological shift we started with. When Lateral Works has adapted the freedom scale for FTTM teams, this is the goal. When you give a team freedom level 1, they can act quickly with only routine reporting. This makes them so much faster, and they feel this incredible ownership in the project's outcome.
They're not just checking boxes for a boss.
No, they're building their product. You see a problem, you fix it. You see an opportunity, you grab it. You don't ask, you don't advise immediately, you just execute.
But the research adds an important nuance here. It says these levels are delegated by the boss and/or earned by the subordinate. You can't just walk in on Monday and declare yourself a level 1, can you?
No, absolutely not. That's a recipe for total disaster. I'm a level 1 now, so I'm buying a corporate jet. No, you earn level 1 by consistently delivering excellent work at level 2 and level 3. Trust is the currency here.
And it's not a blanket status, right? It's contextual.
That's a great point. You might be level 1 on technical decisions because you're the world expert on that code base, but you might be a level 3 on budget decisions because, you tend to overspend.
Okay, that makes sense.
But the goal of the entire organization, both the team members and the boss, should be to move everyone toward level 1 on as many things as possible, as fast as possible. That is the only way you can scale speed.
Now, this leads us into sort of the darker side of the workplace. We've talked about employees getting shot for being level 5, but the Lateral Works research turns the gun around and aims it at the bosses too. And this part is scathing. I was reading this and just thinking, ouch, I hope none of my old bosses are listening.
It really is. It gets right into what it calls the incompetent boss trap.
So we just established that level 4 ask what to do is bad. It's slow. It creates dependence. But the research says some bosses love level 4 employees. They actively cultivate them. Why on earth would a boss want someone who constantly needs their hand held?
It's all psychology. It's ego. It's insecurity. The source text says these bosses enjoy the attention and the need to be needed.
They want to be the oracle, the center of wisdom.
They want to look busy and important. If you have a line of people outside your office door all waiting to ask for instructions, you look really important. You feel like the center of the universe. Oh, I'm so swamped. Everyone needs me. It's a validation of their existence. It soothes their insecurity.
But the research points out the devastating consequence. These bosses are actually working 1 level down.
Exactly. This is such a critical concept for anyone in management to understand. If I'm a manager, but I spend all day telling my subordinates how to do their engineer jobs, then I'm just doing an engineer's work. I am not doing my job, which is supposed to be strategic planning or removing obstacles or interfacing with that steering arm.
You're just a very expensive engineer.
A very expensive and probably not very good engineer. The text calls this a major hidden cause for lost productivity. Because you're paying a manager salary for engineer work, and the actual manager work isn't getting done at all.
And the engineer isn't growing. They're just stuck at level 4. Everybody loses.
The company pays double for the work, and the work is slower. It's a total disaster.
So what's the Lateral Works recommendation for these kinds of bosses?
Demoted or shot.
There it is again. They really believe in capital punishment for bad management.
It just highlights the severity of the problem. A boss who hoards decision-making authority to feed their own ego is a bottleneck.
Yeah.
And in an FTTM environment, that bottleneck is fatal.
Yeah.
You cannot have fast time to market if the boss insists on being the traffic cop for every single decision.
The research actually gives really specific career advice to employees based on this. It addresses the high potential employees, the rock stars, and it says, don't work for bosses who fix your screw-ups.
Right. And that sounds counterintuitive, doesn't it? You'd think, I want a boss who has my back, who will clean up my messes.
Yeah, that sounds like a good boss.
But the text says no. Work for a boss who wants you at freedom level 1 ASAP. If you're a high performer, a micromanager who fixes your mistakes is just going to drive you crazy and stunt your growth. You want a boss who says, here's the goal, here are the resources, go make it happen. Call me if you need air support. That is how you grow.
And conversely, it addresses the incompetent subordinates. And the advice is, go work for the insecure bosses who want to micromanage you.
It's a perfect match. It's like a dating app for bad business practices. If you want to be told what to do all day, find a boss who loves telling people what to do. You'll both be deliriously happy. Just don't do it on an FTTM team. Go find some slow-moving bureaucracy where speed doesn't matter.
The text even includes this satirical but painfully accurate CYA strategy, cover your ass for these bad bosses. It's basically a list of the excuses they use to justify their behavior.
Oh, these are so real. I think I've heard every single one of these in my career.
Like, number one is bitch about the poor quality of the workforce.
Oh, yeah. There are no good workers anymore. That is the classic cry of the bad manager. If I don't tell them exactly what to do, they'll just mess it all up.
Or create foolproof excuses for screw-ups.
So it's always blaming the market, blaming the tools, blaming the budget. It's never blaming the fact that you've paralyzed your entire team with fear and indecision.
And my personal favorite from the list, keep level 4 people around so you don't get upstaged.
Oh, that is dark. But it is so real. If you hire people who are better than you, if you hire level 1 people who take initiative, they might make you look redundant. They might solve problems you couldn't solve. And a bad, insecure boss fears that.
Whereas a good boss,
an FTCAM boss, knows that their success depends entirely on having a team that doesn't need them for the day-to-day. They want to be upstaged because that means the team is winning.
Okay, so we've got the core team structure. We have the freedom level 1 mindset. But this team doesn't exist in a vacuum. It lives inside a larger company, which the Lateral Works research calls the host. And this relationship can get, well, complicated.
The host is the perfect biological metaphor. The team is this new organism trying to grow and thrive inside the host organization. And that host, the big engineering department, the finance department, HR, it creates the environment. It sets the rules. It provides the resources.
And the research presents a really stark binary choice here. The host can either be a provisioning host or an interrupting host.
And the diagrams for this are great because they're so simple. For the interrupting host, you see all these big, angry arrows pointing into the team.
They look like attacks, like the team is under siege.
They are. We're also talking about how interrupts slow down teams and how they use this empowerment scale to become self-empowered. An interrupt looks like, hey, you have to fill out this mandatory HR survey by Friday. You have to attend this all-hands town hall meeting. We need you to help us with this legacy product issue because you're the only one who knows how it works.
Why did you buy that software without filling out Form 27B in triplicate?
Exactly. So the team is trying to run forward, but they're constantly taking incoming fire from their own company.
The research says this leads to a default to delay.
Yes. The team just stops moving to deal with all the interrupts. Or they freeze, waiting for the hierarchy to make a decision for them. They go into this defensive crouch.
Now contrast that with the provisioning host.
In that diagram, the arrows are all pointing out from the host, or they're aligned with the team's direction. The host isn't throwing obstacles in the way. They're throwing supplies ahead of them.
Provisioning really does sound like a military term. Like, here's your ammo, here's your food, now keep marching toward the objective.
That is exactly the intent. The host's job is to clear the path and keep the team fed with what it needs. You need a server. Here's the purchase order. It's already approved. You need a waiver for that arcane corporate policy. It's signed. The research says this creates a fast mindset.
Because the team feels supported.
They know the organization is behind them, pushing them forward rather than pulling them back. It creates a tailwind.
But let's be real. We don't live in a corporate utopia. Even with a good host, interrupts happen, the phone rings, the server crashes, a competitor launches something unexpected, a key team member gets sick. How does a real FTTM team deal with the chaos of reality?
And that brings us to the execution phase. because Lateral Works provides a very specific, very tactical tool for this exact problem. It's called the interrupt provisioning matrix.
So this isn't just a concept, it's a spreadsheet, a literal tracking tool.
It is a tool, and it's deployed specifically on what they call heavyweight teams. And the process around it is rigorous. It's not just a place to, complain about your problems. It is a mechanism for killing problems quickly.
Okay, so walk us through the weekly cycle. How does a team actually use this matrix?
It all starts with the refresh planning meeting. This happens every single week, and the research is very specific. It happens 10 minutes after schedule updates.
So the schedule data is fresh. You know exactly where you are slipping and why.
The data is hot. It's not a week old. And in that meeting, the team updates the matrix. But here's where the discipline comes in. The rule of three.
Only the top 3 interrupts or needs.
Only the top 3 interrupts or provisioning needs make it onto the matrix. That's it.
Why only 3? I mean, what if I have 10 urgent problems?
Locus. If you list 50 problems on a whiteboard, you solve none of them. You just get analysis paralysis. If you force yourself to identify the 3 things that are hurting your velocity the most right now, you can attack them. You can swarm them.
And then there's the 7-day rule. This one is fascinating to me.
All line items have a 7-day life. That is the rule. If an interrupt goes on the matrix on Tuesday, it must be retired or resolved by next Tuesday. Period.
But what if it's a huge problem? What if it's going to take a month to fix the build server?
Then, according to the Lateral Works process, it comes off the matrix and becomes a separate improvement project. It gets its own charter, its own little team. The matrix is for immediate tactical impediments. It's for, get this rock out of my road so I can keep driving. If the rock is actually a mountain, we need a tunnel boring machine, not a shovel.
So you move it to a different list. Don't clog up the fast response list with long-term projects.
Exactly. Keep the tempo high.
Okay, so the team identifies its top 3 interrupts.
Here.
Then they take them to the ERB, the Executive Review Board.
Which is that 3-person steering arm we talked about earlier.
But the meeting is ridiculously short. The research says 10 minutes per team.
10 minutes. Just think about that. Most executive project reviews are these hour-long grillings where the team gets interrogated and beaten up. This is 10 minutes.
And the purpose is what?
Communication, not problem resolution. This is a crucial distinction that the text makes. It says, be careful not to start solving all the problems in the meeting.
That seems so counterintuitive. If I bring a big problem to the bosses, don't I want them to solve it for me?
No, because if you do that, you're right back to being a level 4 employee.
Yeah.
Ask what to do. You're giving away your power. You bring the problem to the ERB to inform them or to ask for a specific provision or to get a tiebreaker decision. You do not go there to brainstorm.
The research has that great line, it warns against letting teams pass the monkey.
Pass the monkey is a classic William Ockham phrase. It means taking the responsibility, the monkey, off my shoulder and putting it squarely onto yours. If I walk into the ERB and say, we have a big problem with our vendor, what should we do? I've just passed the monkey to the executives.
And a good ERB should refuse to take it.
The ERB must refuse the monkey. They have to say, you are the core team. You are the business owners. Go figure it out. Come back when you need a signature or a check to make it happen.
Unless it's an interrupt the team literally can't solve. Like the main testing lab is fully booked by another project and they won't let us in.
Exactly. That is a provisioning request. The team says, we need the lab. The ERB says, okay, we'll use our cloud to bump that other project. Done. That takes 2 minutes. Problem solved.
And the outcome of that 10-minute meeting.
Action items are assigned, and they must be completed, NLT no later than 7 days. The tempo is just relentless. Everything is a 1-week cycle. Identify, attack, resolve.
It really is a complete system designed for speed. When you put all these pieces together, let's just try to synthesize this for everyone.
Okay, let's look at the whole picture. I think of it as like a 4-layer cake of speed.
Okay, I like that. So you start with the structure, the core team. Cross-functional, heavyweight, dedicated, no silos.
Right. And that breaks down all the physical and the organizational barriers to communication.
Then you give them the mindset, the freedom scale. Everyone is aiming for level 1. Act, routine reporting only. No more waiting for permission.
Correct. That breaks down the psychological barriers and, crucially, the decision latency.
Then you surround them with the right environment, a provisioning host, an organization that sends resources out to the team rather than interrupting them with bureaucracy.
Yes, that creates a tailwind for the project instead of a headwind.
And finally, you give them the tool, the interrupt provisioning matrix, a disciplined weekly mechanism to identify and smash any obstacle in their path within 7 days.
And when you stack those four things, structure, mindset, environment, and tool, that's how you get FTTM. That's how you get the right product to the market at the right time.
And what I love about this is how it connects right back to that idea we started with. Running your own business. A small business owner doesn't ask a VP for permission to buy a new stapler.
No.
They just buy the stapler because they need it to ship the package today.
Precisely. The whole lateral works model is trying to recreate that raw entrepreneurial velocity, but inside a large corporate structure. It shifts the entire focus from activity. Are you busy? Did you fill out your timesheet? To results? Did you launch? Did you solve the customer's problem?
And it moves the locus of control from during the fact or before the fact, which is just dragging everyone down to after the fact.
Which is really just another word for trust. After the fact, control is trust. It's the organization saying, we trust you to know what you're doing. If you mess up, we'll figure it out later. But we would rather you mess up while moving at 100 miles an hour than be perfect while standing completely still.
That is such a powerful summary. Speed comes from trust.
It comes from trust and clarity. You can't have that trust without the clarity of the roles and the clarity of the mission.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with a thought, a challenge, really.
Okay, what's the challenge?
Look at your own team and look at yourself in the mirror. Where are you on the freedom scale? Are you really operating at level 1, running your piece of the project like it's your own business? Or are you maybe stuck at level 4, waiting outside a boss's office to ask that question, what do I do next?
And if you're a boss listening to this, are you the bottleneck? Are you keeping your people at level 4 because it makes you feel important? Or are you actively pushing them to level 1 so they can fly?
And are you ready to shoot the behaviors, metaphorically, of course, that are slowing your entire organization down? It is a tough question, but if you want FTTM, you have to answer it.
Absolutely. The freedom to act isn't just given, it's built, it's earned. And in the end, it's the only way to win in a fast market.
Thanks for listening. Make sure to tune in next week where we will dive deeper into key practices of FTTM teams.